The 3 times my ex-wife tried to take my daughter away from me and move to another state. This happened about 20 years ago, so I am telling this story to the best of my recollection. After our divorce, I had one day less than a 50-50 it's parenting split. My ex-wife refused to give me 50-50 it's in mediation, because she just had to win. After about a year of being divorced, I got a summons in the mail to appear in court. My wife was trying to permanently take my daughter away from me. She made up a bunch of stuff, but the basis of her argument was that I was participating in deviant sexual behavior. I had a difficult time finding a lawyer because of this. Without even talking to me, the first several lawyers I spoke with didn't want to touch the case as soon as they read that in the summons. Eventually, I found a great attorney though. He was not cheap, however. In court, our lawyer put her on the stand, and she told the judge a bunch of BS she thought was going on at my house in regards to the deviant sexual behavior between me and my girlfriend. She did, however, say that she had no idea if my daughter had been exposed to anything she was accusing me of, but it wasn't safe for my daughter to stay with me because of what she suspected was going on. On the stand, she also said that she had a job and a place to rent waiting for her in another state that she wanted to move to, about 300+ miles away. In addition, she also said that she visited her boyfriend in this other state on the weekends. She said that she only took our daughter with her occasionally, since the parenting split gave me time every Saturday, and that made it difficult for her to leave after work on Friday to see her boyfriend, and then have to return the next day. Note, this meant when she had our daughter on Friday, she had to leave after work on Friday with our daughter to go see her boyfriend, and bring our daughter back to me every Saturday. Since I got our daughter every Saturday, either at 8 a.m. or at noon, alternating Saturdays. It is what she had agreed to in mediation, and how she got her extra day a month. It was kind of complicated how I had some days every other week, she had some days every other week, but I got our daughter every Saturday, either starting at 8 a.m. or at noon on the weekends. Or, she could leave our daughter with me, and give me extra time above the court-ordered amount if she wanted to leave after work on Friday to see her boyfriend, and not have to come back till she had to be to work Monday morning. This is what she did most weekends. The other option was to ask me for permission to take our daughter out of state and keep her on Saturdays, which I allowed occasionally, but not often. She was absolutely hated that she had to ask me for permission. Oh well, it was the deal she originally agreed to in mediation. Love me some karma? So anyway, when her lawyer got done asking her questions, my lawyer got up and asked her his first question. Is the parenting plan that you have been using to go to this other state, that you have worked out with your ex-husband, something that you have done because it is in the best interest of your daughter? Freaking genius question. That is what I paid the big bucks for. She kind of hemmed and hawed for a bit, and then said, yes. I mean, what else could she say? No? LMAO. Then as my lawyer started to ask his second question, something very unexpected happened. The judge held up his hand and sternly said to my lawyer, go have a seat. I have some questions for her. My lawyer turned to walk back to our table with a look of surprise on his face. When he sat down next to me, he whispered to me, I have no idea what's happening. He's never done this before. The judge then asked my ex-wife, if your daughter came up to you and asked you if it was okay to have premarital sex, what would you say to her? My ex-wife started to visibly squirm in her seat, and she started to say, well, when she turns 18. The judge cut her off and said no. Right now, at 8 years old, if your daughter asked you if it was okay to have sex with someone that you weren't married to, what would you tell her? As she squirmed even more, her reply was something like, well, I'd say no, Your Honor. The judge then lashed out at her and said something very close to, well, by taking your daughter to your boyfriend's for the weekend, that is exactly what you are telling her, and, as he pointed to me, I don't care if this man has his girlfriend chained up naked and swinging from the ceiling, as long as your daughter is not being exposed to it, then what you are doing is worse than anything he is doing, and it is none of your business. He banged his gavel and said this case is done. My lawyer then jumped up and said, Your Honor, we would like to move that the parenting plan which they have worked out between them currently, that is different from the original court order, be made permanent. The judge then replied, we are going to take a 15-minute recess for the two of you to work it out between you. And when I come back, if you don't have something worked out, I will work it out for you. And he walked out. So, we worked out that we would use the original parenting plan of 50-50 it's minus 1 day, but I would also now get all weekend every weekend, from when my ex-wife got off work on Friday until Sunday night. When adding up the hours now, it ended up that I got just under a week extra than what I had before. When the judge returned and we told him this plan, he accepted it, and then he also reduced my child support to account for me now having my daughter the extra days every month. So, I ended up getting more time with my daughter every month and a reduction in my child support, all by court order. My ex-wife was also humiliated on the stand by the judge. It was a good day. My ex-wife was furious, because she thought the judge was going to allow her to move and take my daughter with her. Oops, karma bitch. Lol. An important thing that I got out of all this was that her real reason for wanting to move was to live closer to her boyfriend. Her made-up crap about deviant sexual behavior was her way of trying to get the court to let her move, without having to be honest about why she wanted to move. She figured that just her wanting to live near her boyfriend wasn't going to be a good enough reason for the court, so she had to make up something that was going to be a big deal to the judge. Yeah, well, the judge saw right through her BS. Part 2 and 3 are not nearly as good. However, what happened to me after the third subpoena to appear in court was icing on the cake. Hang in there and follow along. It should be worth the wait. The one thing that I forgot to mention in part 1 was that my great lawyer cost me $10,000 upfront for the first court appearance. I really didn't have much of a choice but to hire him. As I said in part 1, I had met with several lawyers prior to meeting with him, and everyone turned down my case the second they read that I was being accused of deviant sexual behavior. About 6 months later I got served papers to appear in court again. My ex-wife was trying to take my daughter away from me and move 300 plus miles away once again. This time, however, she is more honest, and her reasoning is that she is now engaged to be married to her boyfriend, and she wants to move closer to him. Her thinking seems to be that since she is engaged to be married, the judge will look differently on her efforts to move 300 plus miles away and take my daughter away from me. I hire the same lawyer, and it costs me another $10,000. The day before we are to appear in court, I got a phone call from my lawyer telling me that the court date is being postponed by 1 week. He says that my ex-wife's lawyer had a family emergency. Her lawyer's father has suddenly become very ill, and so he needed to take some time off to deal with the situation. Remember this part. It becomes important at the end of part 3. A week later we appear in court, and her new lawyer really has it together for her case. We also have a different judge this time. Come to find out that the previous judge was filling in for this new judge, because this judge had some medical condition that needed to be attended to at the time of the first court appearance. Her lawyer puts her on the stand, and she explains how she has a job waiting for her that is exactly the same as her current job, and all sorts of stuff, as to why moving will be a great thing for our daughter. When it's my turn to testify, I get to tell the judge how I am a very active father in my daughter's life, how I attend all of her sports events, even when it's not my parenting time days, how I take her to the science museum, as well as many other fun and educational activities. When we are both done testifying, the judge starts to give his ruling. With what he is saying, and as he is explaining his decision, it seems like he is going to rule for my ex-wife and allow her to move and take my daughter. When I realize what is about to happen, I interrupt the judge. I'm almost in tears, and I say, "Your Honor, please don't take my daughter away from me." Immediately after I say this to the judge, my lawyer stands up, and he reminds the judge of a specific law in the state that we are in. The law basically says that one parent can only be allowed to move and take a child away from the other parent if the reason for moving is somehow going to be a significant improvement in the life of the parent who wants to move. For example, if she was being promoted to a new position or had a new job waiting at the new location that involved a significant pay increase. This law did not say that a future marriage was a good enough reason. She had just testified that the job she was being offered was the same rate of pay as the job she currently had. Nothing else in her testimony was any sort of significant improvement to what she was doing currently. The judge agreed and ruled against her moving away and taking our daughter with her. The judge told her that she was allowed to move away, but she was not allowed to take our daughter with her. Once again, and now $20,000 poorer, I won in court. But now I was broke. Just 1 week later I get served papers to appear in court again. She now has a new plan to get the judge to allow her to move 300 plus miles away and take our daughter with her. So, at the end of part 2, just 1 week later, I get served papers to appear in court again. She now has a new plan to get the judge to allow her to move 300 plus miles away and take our daughter with her. My lawyer calls her lawyer, and he finds out that she is now married to the boyfriend, and she thinks that this is going to change the judge's decision this time. She is still living in our home state, however, and her new husband is living 300 plus miles away. My lawyer tells me that is not the law, as mentioned in our prior court appearance, and it isn't likely the judge is going to change his decision. But the judge may now consider their combined incomes, as well as their housing, to be an upward benefit to her moving away with our daughter. So the judge may decide in her favor this time. My lawyer also tells me that it will be another $10,000 for him to represent me again in court. Unfortunately, after already paying $20,000 for his legal representation the previous 2 times I was broke. Don't get me wrong, his services were worth every penny. I just didn't have anywhere close to another $10,000. My lawyer tells me that even if I win this time, my ex-wife is probably not going to give up, and she will keep dragging me to court until I am broke and I give up. I tell him that I am already broke, so he comes up with a suggestion. My lawyer suggests that we make her an offer, and maybe I want to consider moving the 300 plus miles away, so that I can keep my 50-50 its parenting plan in place. He says that she is so desperate to move that she will probably accept just about anything if I agree to let her move to the other state, and she can move with our daughter. So, after discussing it with him, this is the proposal we come up with to offer her. If I allow her to move and take our daughter, I get every other weekend with my daughter, every holiday, and summer with our daughter. She puts our daughter on her health insurance. She will meet me halfway to exchange our daughter both ways for my parenting time. If I am able to move to be near my daughter's school district at some point in time, I get to have an exact 50-50 its parenting plan. 1 week with me and 1 week with her, alternating weekly. If at some point in time I am able to move to this other state because of the expense I have to deal with for moving, as well as my need to uproot my business, relocate it, and start over from scratch, I will no longer be required to pay her child support. This sounds good to me. I have my lawyer draw up the proposal and give it to her lawyer. Within 24 hours she agrees, signs the agreement, and my lawyer submits it to the court. The agreement is approved by the court. She has no idea that I intend to get moved to the new state as soon as possible. You see, what she knows at the time is that I run a business in the state I currently live in, and I have a lot of local customers that I depend on to earn my living. I don't think that it even crosses her mind that I would even be able to move anytime soon. What she doesn't know is that a couple of months prior I had hurt my back rather badly, I was not able to provide services to my current customers, and I had to slowly cut back on providing the services to them as our contracts came to an end. I had also stopped taking on new clients until I could get surgery on my back. It was a good time to move in regards to my business. What she also didn't know was that to make up for the loss of income from my back troubles, I had started an online business that was growing, and with this income, I was going to eventually be able to move sooner rather than later. Over the next 3 months, I started to plan for my move to the new state. I also had back surgery, had a ruptured disc removed, and I was able to get around fine once again. Through this 3 months, we did the whole meet halfway every other weekend thing, so I could spend time with my daughter, as agreed. During this 3 months, my online business really started to take off. I was making more money than with my previous business, and I would soon be able to relocate and continue the online business. So, with the money that I was making, I rented a house near my daughter's school, and I commuted back and forth the 300+ miles every other week. I now had my daughter 50/50ths, and I no longer had to pay child support. My online business was growing, and I took the next 3 months to wrap up my life in the current state that I was living in, lease expiring where I was renting, etc. Then I made the move permanently, leaving the previous state behind. I was now living full-time in the new state, running my growing online business from home, and having my daughter 50% of the time. But this story gets better. About a month after I was living in the new state full-time, I got a phone call from my daughter on an evening that she was staying with her mother. My daughter was in tears, told me she couldn't stand living with her mother, said that she was standing outside, down the road a bit from her mother's house, and asked me to come get her. So, I jumped in the car, picked up my daughter, and brought her back to my place. From then on, until just before my daughter's high school graduation, when she made up with her mother, I had my daughter 100% of the time. Through that whole time we never heard from her, and she never bothered me again. I was a full-time dad, and my life revolved around taking care of my daughter. It was awesome, but it gets even better. I left out a part back when I was still living in the previous state, just after I had my back surgery. One day I was shopping at the local mall, and I ran into my lawyer. As we made small talk for a bit, he says to me, "I want to tell you a story about that second time we had to go to court, but you have to promise to never tell anyone," and I agreed. He proceeds to tell me the following story. He tells me that the other day at the courthouse he ran into the lawyer she had first when we were going to court the second time, the one that bailed out on her the day before we were supposed to be in court. My lawyer asked him, "How's your dad doing?" And my lawyer said that at first he had a confused look on his face, like he had no idea what my lawyer was referring to. This other lawyer then realized why my lawyer asked him this, and he proceeded to tell my lawyer that his dad was fine, and was actually never sick. He then told my lawyer that he just made that up, because he no longer wanted to represent my ex-wife, because she was an evil bitch, and he couldn't stand her. He figured that the court would buy his reason for bailing out on her at the last minute, and it worked. Well, that's the whole story. I hope you have enjoyed reading it. This story is as true as my memory allows, and I appreciate the opportunity to finally share this story with others. I thank you for reading,